Welcome, everybody. Today, we are bringing you another free webinar from Desert Waters Correctional Outreach. And today's topic is on the deeply emotional issue of losing a loved one to suicide. So today, our presentation is called Facing the Unthinkable, Finding Hope and Healing After the Suicide of a Loved One. And as many of you know, suicide occurs at very high and alarming rates in the corrections profession, but it can also strike very close to home. We're grateful that you're here. We want to acknowledge that it takes courage to show up for a webinar like this. And however you've been affected by this issue, we recognize that this topic is deeply personal and may include a wide range of emotions. And you're invited to engage at whatever level feels right for you, whether by listening or contributing in the chat or asking questions, and we will do our best to answer them at the end. This time of year can be especially challenging. We have the holidays upon us, and those are often associated with family gatherings and getting together with our social network and celebration. But for those who have lost a loved one to suicide, they may instead feel that heightened sense of absence, and the loss of memories and even longing or additional private grief. And our intention today is just to offer a respectful and supportive space that is full of compassion to reduce any sense of aloneness that anyone may be experiencing as you remember. If you're struggling yourself with thoughts of suicide, we strongly encourage you to reach out to support, whether that's to a mental health professional or a peer support person, a loved one or spiritual leader, a trusted coworker, whoever that may be. And you can also call or text 988, which is the 24/7 suicide hotline with providers available nationally. You deserve care and support as you're navigating this difficult time, and we want you to be well. I'm Stephanie Rawlings. I'm the Deputy Director for Desert Waters Correctional Outreach. Desert Waters is a 501c3 nonprofit incorporated in Colorado in 2003, almost 23 years ago now. Our mission is to improve the well-being of corrections and other public safety professionals through training, consulting, and other essential resources to foster resilience, mental health, and overall well-being in our challenging professions. To date, Desert Waters has conducted groundbreaking research in correctional staff wellness, has offered award-winning training to tens of thousands of corrections employees and their family members across the nation and overseas. And the instructors we're certified have also trained many more tens of thousands of staff across the country and beyond. If you would like more information about the resources that we have available for your staff and agencies, or to ask any questions regarding staff wellness, please visit us at desertwaters.com, and you can learn more about what we do. And if you like these free webinars, please take a moment to like us on our social media pages, Facebook and LinkedIn, and you will get the most up-to-date announcements of all of our free resources for staff. Today's guest panelists are Steve Howarder, Major Sean Klusnick, and Brett Parker. Each of them have lost a loved one to suicide, and that has profoundly shaped, and they have been profoundly shaped by that experience. We are deeply grateful for their willingness to join us today and to share their stories in the hope of offering understanding, connection, and comfort to others who might be navigating a similar loss. Our moderator today needs no introduction, Dr. Katerina Spinaris, our founder and executive director of Desert Waters, and she's going to take over.
Yeah, so here's a little more information about our panelists, so it feels more personal. Steve, whom we also affectionately call Howarder, retired in 2020 after 31 years with the Illinois Department of Corrections. He worked as a correctional officer, sergeant, and counselor. He currently serves as a master instructor at Desert Waters and is on the Illinois Fraternal Order of Police Wellness Team and is the assistant chief of the Cuba Fire Protection District. His father was diagnosed as bipolar, or also called manic depressive, in the early 90s, but his illness was successfully managed with medication. However, he quit his medication the summer of 2012 and ended up hospitalized for 30 days that fall and again for 30 days the following spring. He took his own life in April 2013. It took time for Steve to effectively deal with his own thoughts as he buried them with work and family responsibilities. He eventually found the silver lining to his cloud by becoming involved with the Illinois Department of Corrections Staff Wellness Response Team, reconnecting with his faith, and by helping the others who were struggling. Major Sean Klusnick is the Judicial Services Bureau Commander and Jail Administrator for the Hernando County Sheriff's Office in Florida. In criminal justice since 1997, he's dual certified in corrections and law enforcement and has led operations in detention, judicial services, special operations, and human resources. He serves as president of the American Jail Association from 2025 to 2026. He's a commissioner on the Florida Corrections Accreditation Commission, is a certified jail manager, and a graduate of the FBI National Academy and the National Jail Leadership Command Academy. He holds degrees in criminal justice and a master's degree in philosophy. Sean lost his father to suicide at age 18, an experience that shaped his commitment to taking mental illness seriously in the profession, speaking openly with staff about grief, and reducing stigma around seeking and maintaining mental health treatment for all public safety professionals. Brent Parker retired in 2016 after 33 years of corrections. He began his career at the Colorado Department of Corrections as a correctional officer. He worked his way through many positions and ranks, ending his career as the Training Academy director. He currently serves as Desert Waters Senior Advisor and Master Instructor. In 1998, he and his wife at the time were going through a separation, most likely heading for divorce. One full morning, she took her life. Brent was left with their two small children, ages 3 and 5. At the time, his own grieving took a back seat to the care and concern for his kids. He found comfort through his faith and the support of family and friends. Brent has since recovered and got remarried to a wonderful woman, but the suicide left some lasting scars. Steph?
Thank you. At the end of our discussion, we'll offer you some resources and support groups and even some writings and some books on today's topic. Our session today is going to be recorded, so if you have to step out and you don't get a chance to finish the session, look for it on YouTube in the coming weeks. It will be, the entire presentation will be available and posted on our channel. We invite you to post questions in the chat during the presentation, and at the end, our panel will answer as many as time allows. After that, we will stop the recording and just allow open dialogue. So if you want to ask a question, feel free to raise your hand or enter it into the comments in the chat, and we'll call on you or address the questions as they come in. We do plan to finish in 90 minutes, but we'll stay for about another 15 or 20 minutes in an attempt to cover all of your questions and comments. If you cannot stay for the additional question comment time at the end, no worries. We understand that people have to get on with their day in operation. So we look forward to what our panelists can share with us today.
Thank you. Yes, and I would like to start with a little introduction because this is obviously a very emotionally laden topic, and it's one that the pain of it doesn't have an expiration date. And the whole thing of suicide being a preventable matter, being part of the pain that maybe could have been averted and prevented. So I would like just to take a moment of silence and just think back on the ones we lost and honor their memory before we proceed. So we're talking about real human beings that found life too painful and chose to exit. And we're talking to the survivors. But before we start with some basics about suicide, let's go to the next slide. It may be possible that some of you are struggling right now with thoughts of suicide. And it's important to remember that, like I said, it's something that's preventable. Suicide can be averted. You're not alone, and there is hope. There are people who specialize in providing support and help, and people who genuinely care. And reaching out, of course, we know more and more about that it's a sign of courage and strength. And it's a wonderful sign of choosing life. And there is a chat text call of 988 24/7, and of course, local mental health providers. So we say again, please reach out. There are many, many solutions. I've personally talked to people who attempted suicide and survived, and they were almost invariably glad that they failed at that attempt because they had so much more life afterwards to live. So I have two or three quotes I want to share with you from people who have gone through the loss of suicide. And if we can go to the next couple of slides. Yes. The first one by Elizabeth Jennings is, I think it's such a powerful, powerful image about a half stitched scar. Think of a wound that's gaping open, but it's only half stitched. And she said, time does not heal. It makes a half stitched scar that can be broken again. And again, you feel grief as total as it in its first hour. That's such a powerful image of like the wound getting unstitched again and starting to hurt all over again, and can happen over and over again because, like I said, it has no expiration date. So let's go to the next one by a mom who lost her son to suicide. Iris Bolton. I don't know why, and I'll never know why. I don't have to know why. I don't like it. What have I? What I have to do is make a choice about my living. What I have to do is make a choice about my living. She has absolutely no way of knowing why her son killed himself. You just know she didn't like it, and she has to make a choice about going on. Let's go to the next one. In the end, bottom line is look to the living, love them, and hold on, by Douglas Dunn. To keep going, have to keep looking to the living, to the future, love them, the big ingredient for life, and hold on through the tough moments. So setting a kind of a foundation for our talk today, let's go to the next couple of slides about emotions people go through. Truly a veritable roller coaster, going through shock, unbelief, disbelief, horror, denial about the fact that somebody we love died, and especially by their own hands, so to speak, anger, feeling helpless, cannot bring them back, numbing, tremendous grief, feeling abandoned, like, how could you do that to me? Why did you leave me? Didn't you care enough about me? Feeling betrayed, like I thought we were going to be doing this together for life. Guilt, what did I miss? Shame, about people saying bad things about somebody who died by suicide and indirectly to their loved ones. Fear, like moms or dads who have children and one of them dies by suicide. Will any of the other children do anything like that? And then the relief that can cause to some people to feel guilt or false guilt, feeling relieved if a roller coaster is over, like hospitalizations and drama and attempts and fights and erratic behavior, feeling relief that it's over. They don't have to deal with it anymore. And then feeling guilty about feeling relieved, but how could you not feel relieved when a bunch of disruption is finished, even if it's so painful? So let's go to the next one about behaviors. And the one after that, uh, trying to make sense of what happened, like the part of the disbelief and the shock, like why, what happened, maybe getting details of the suicide scene or the suicide itself stuck in one's mind and kind of obsessively going over them again and again, and going over the what if I've done this, what if I've done that, if only I had been there, um, could have stopped it, I would have stopped it, I could have stopped it, and driving myself crazy with the what ifs and the if onlys, asking why, especially if there's nothing evident. Uh, the part of the false guilt. What did I miss? Could I have caught it and prevented this? Or what did I do wrong? Did I contribute to this? And then looking for something and someone to blame, and a lot of times blaming oneself. It's my fault. I could have, should have, would have done more. I should have done more. And really tormenting oneself with all that and trying to make sense and maybe not finding any sense. And so that's part of our introduction. And now we can go to our panelists that I really am profoundly grateful to for being willing to open their hearts and souls to us over the internet about a profound loss they all experienced, and to talk about it all in the hopes of preventing and assisting others who are struggling. So we have a few questions to ask them. But first of all, I'd like to say, would you like to say anything, guys, introducing yourselves? Or would you like us to dive into the questions? Whatever you're more comfortable with is fine with me. We have Sean and Howie and Brent.
I'd
Anything you
say
want
just get into it.
to? Okay, let's get into it. All righty. So we read your bios and we saw the kind of loss. I mean, these were intimate relationship, two fathers and a wife. So as you went through it, and now looking back, because it's been what for you all have been several years since that loss. What kind of strength did you find in your soul that you didn't even know you had before that happened? Uh, Sean, would you like to start?
Sure. I was 18 years old when the event happened, and I wouldn't say that I found strength in my soul right away. I would. I was 18. I thought I knew a lot because I was an 18-year-old guy and just finished high school, and I'm going to take the world by storm. Here I go, right? Then that day came, and it was a little a little challenging, but I really I buried it. I buried it down pretty quick. And I tell you what, when it comes to the soul, um, when my when we were making arrangements for the funeral for my father, I was raised Catholic, and I'm still Catholic today. But during that period, we had a hard time finding a church or a Catholic priest who's willing to perform the funeral. We did find one ultimately, and the funeral actually took place at a funeral home, not in a church. And during the time where the priest was, shaking our hands and offering his condolences, somebody said, you'll see your dad in heaven one day. And the Catholic priest actually said, no, that's not happening. Suicide's not go to heaven. I was
Wow.
like, wow, that was a pretty abrupt statement. You probably just kept it to yourself. But
Wow.
and I know now doctrinally and through theology that that's probably not true. God definitely does not abandon people that are struggling with mental illness. Not in the right mind. You make permanent decision during a temporary situation. He's not gonna damn you that way. So that was, so I would have to say that my soul was almost injured in that scenario because
Absolutely.
you think a priest wearing a collar or somebody you trust, that image that you trust growing up, and kind of just destroyed the little bit of hope. Obviously, I have the hope back, but yeah, that was pretty challenging at first.
Yes. Yes, and actually, I did a little reading in one of the books I listed for you to at the end is Night Falls Past, and the author Kate Redfield Jamison, who herself is severely bipolar. She's a psychologist, she's an expert on medication compliance for bipolar disorder worldwide. Amazing woman. She goes through a list of different religions that completely damned suicide. I think maybe out of fear, trying to maybe have a like anti-suicide campaign by scaring people. I don't know, but it was really horrific. Adding insult to injury, so to speak, adding injury to injury. And thankfully, in the last few, maybe the last century, people realized a lot a lot more about all that, the need for compassion and support and healing and recovery for illnesses, especially something as strong chemically based as bipolar disorder. So I'm sorry you were wounded like that on the day of the funeral, even looking for somebody to conduct the ceremony. Man, that's, yeah. But you should read the history. It's been horrific across all kinds of religions. People who suicided were worse than murderers in people's eyes for some reason.
Mhm.
I don't know. I think it's like the negative reverse psychology to stop suicide. I don't think it works very well. But so thank you. Anything else you'd like to add at this point before we? Oh, how did you discover more inner strength as time went on? Because you did.
Oh, I mean, I did during a personal faith journey. And then, honestly, it took years, in my opinion, before I decided that, just ignoring the event, it wasn't going to be a beneficial thing. So I live in Florida now. I lived in Florida my entire adult life, basically. And it took until somewhere around like 2015 or so, where my facility was sent up to Boston, where I was born and raised. Still a proud Patriots fan, especially this year since they've gotten a little better. So I was sent to Boston to get our first certification through ACA at our facility, and I was a lieutenant at the time, and I had a group of our staff there, and I decided to jump in the rental car and started driving around the old neighborhood and kind of reminiscing about some of my old houses growing up. And now I'll back up. I'll even share this. The life wasn't always perfect at home. My dad was physically, mentally abusive to my mother, definitely mentally abusive to myself and my sister. So there was demons in the house. There was definitely alcoholism. There was at one point they were both addicted to cocaine. It was rough. So you constantly see domestic violence stuff. It was not easy. So driving around, maybe seeing those houses in my old neighborhoods and some of the places where I grew up. I traveled back, didn't think anything of it. We successfully got our certificate, came home, and probably when I got home, I would venture to say it was about 2 weeks. And actually, my wife's on this Zoom right now. Thank God for her, because I wasn't right. I wasn't acting right. I was definitely pushing some level of depression, and I couldn't figure it out. I didn't know what was wrong with me. Um, and finally, she basically said, in a much more loving way, but she basically said, "Hey, something's wrong with you. Let's go figure it out. Let's get some help." And I was like, I was at first, I was a little, "What are you talking about? I'm a man. I don't need help. I've been doing this job at this point because I've been doing my job for over 20 years. I'm experiencing a lot of things, mental health wise in jails." But, she was able to say, "Hey, you need help. Let's go figure it out." Thankfully, who's also on the call, I knew, uh, Denise Schoenwald. She's a mental health counselor, licensed mental health counselor. I knew her through other interactions, and I ultimately reached out to Denise and started seeing Denise for about probably at least three years, I believe. And
Good.
she was amazing. Just like just like my wife, Denise was also one of those, you can't pull the wool over my eyes, and you're not going to get away with not answering my questions, and you're not going to get away with not doing the work. And our sessions are going to be busy, and you're going to be tired by the time we're done. And she's amazing. And at this point, Denise is a good friend of mine. We've done some work together, some roll call trainings and other things. We've been on a couple of podcasts together, and I have no problem telling my story at this point. But two amazing women, my wife and Denise, really got me on the path. And the best thing for me was I was pretty open about it in general, getting started. And thankfully for the agency I worked for, the sheriff's office, my sheriff, my chief deputy at the time, my major at the time, I told him what was going on. There's of course there's a stigma in law enforcement and corrections across the country about seeking mental health treatment, because I'm afraid they're going to put me on the porch. They're going to take my gun away. They're going to take my badge away until they get my story straight
Yep.
or whatever. That wasn't the case here. I told them, "Hey, this is what's going on. This triggered some historical trauma, and I'm getting some help. Just want to let you know, I might have to go, go to an appointment here and there. They were so receptive and open, and like I said, I was lieutenant then. I got promoted to captain. I got promoted to major, and now currently I get to play the role of president of the American Jail Association. So it didn't hurt my career in any way going to seek help. I think more often it's when people don't seek help that hurts their career and could ruin their lives. So
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for your courage. And of course, we applaud the support you had from your leadership, because it could have been different. And we are so delighted, because that's the leadership culture change that we're looking for. Thank you very much, Sean. Howie and Brent, what about you guys? Let's hear from you too.
So I'll go ahead. Like Katerina said earlier, my wife and I were going through a separation at the time, so my emotions were pretty messed up at that time anyway. So when this occurred, I think when I look back now, I didn't realize what was going on at the time, but I think what I did was what corrections people do in times of trouble. You just go right to work. You got things to do, and I think unfair to myself, I think I put my own emotions on the back burner over the whole thing, and I just took care of business. I was a single dad now with 2 little kids, and there were things that needed to be done, and I think I just put all my focus on those kids and probably denied myself the chance to really grieve, probably for a few years, to be honest with you. I was just you know, uh, not really giving it any attention, I don't think. I got, like Sean said, I got some negative feedback from people who wanted to blame me, especially her family. They were looking for somebody to blame, and I was the easy target given the situation. I know I went through some false guilt, but I found out, like a lot of people, I think if you're a real survivor, you'll do whatever it takes to survive. And I think I just slowly and methodically over time got a lot of help. I was surrounded by good people, um, uh, good counseling, people from work that were really there. They stayed with me. I had made a job change at about that time. I'd moved from a custody and control position to manage volunteers. And it was really a godsend, because now I was surrounded by people who really saw life in a different way than than we do in corrections. And they were very, very supportive, and they were around me all the time. So I think what I discovered was I had a lot more inner strength than I probably would have given myself credit for. I refused to be defined by this event. Life's going to go on for me and my kids, and I don't want them to think negative of their mom. So we've had very positive talks about that. It's not going to be the reason that we live our life. We're going to go on with life. And it challenged my faith. I know in the beginning it challenged my faith. But in the long run, it strengthened my faith. And I think that was an important thing for me to go through to get where I'm at today. So,
Wow. And you mentioned getting some counseling, like professional counseling.
I did. I got a lot of good counseling from some faith-based volunteers who literally surrounded me. I mean, it was like for months, they were just around all the time, checking on me and making sure I was doing good. And so they were good counsel. Then I got some professional counseling that really helped me deal with the false guilt. Looking back on it now, it's easy to see where I was. I asked all those same questions you brought up earlier, Katerina. Why didn't I see this coming? What could I have done? What part did I play? All of these questions that don't really have answers. And if they do, they might not be the right answers. So, but I had good counseling. And I also remarried. sometime later to a wonderful woman who's been very, very supportive for me and my kids. And that was an important step to take, not just for life, but she's helped me grieve through some of it as well.
Wow.
She's been a good sounding board and recognized really what we went through was pretty traumatic.
Oh my goodness. Yes. 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 You'll never forget being told, right? The day you were told.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'll
Yeah.
tell you, we were separated at the time. So anybody that's been through that knows your emotions are all over the place. But when that happened, when she took her life, um, all the all the other crap we were going through, it didn't really matter. What mattered was a woman that I loved was gone, and the mom to my kids was gone, and that was crushing.
Yes.
It was crushing.
Yes. And yes. Thank you. Thank you, Brent. And that's why I thank you, all three of you, for coming today, because I know it's kind of it's like a reawakening some of that pain, talking about it, um, refeeling it. Howie, Steve?
Well, mine's similar to Sean and Brent's. I mean, the day our incident happened, I was at work and I got the phone call. So I left work, came out to the farm where it happened, and I called my wife on the way because she was at home, and I told her, "Hey, I just got a call. Dad shot himself. I don't know if he's alive or not. You need to get to the farm." And I beat her here by just a few minutes. And of course, by the time I got here, the police were here, EMS, everybody else. And my brother, told me he was gone. And I went into what I'll call condition black for probably 10 minutes or so. I don't remember much of the conversation I had with my brothers, but within just a few minutes, my wife got here and I saw her walking down the road because the driveway was so packed she had to park, across the road at the neighbors. And when I saw her, she was obviously just completely devastated because she'd figured out that it was going to be a bad ending. As soon as I saw her, it was like flipping a switch to where I had to bury my stuff to take care of her because her dad had killed himself when she was in her early 20s. And
Wow.
that was probably 10 years or so after that we got together. But every year on the anniversary of his death, she would always go into I'll just call it a mini depression. And she had always told, and I tried to, talk her through it and help her out because I'd been through suicide training with DOC multiple times. But I don't think I took it seriously enough. I try to help her out, help her work through what she was feeling. And she had always told me, "You'll never understand it because it hasn't happened to you." And I didn't get that until it happened to me. So, for the next 4 years or so, I kind of like Brent, kind of like Sean, I was pretty heavily involved with the union. In addition to my regular job. So I was busy a lot on the fire department. And I think that was a good thing for me because I didn't have time to think a lot. But on the occasions when I was by myself or not occupied, I couldn't get it out of my head. But I blame myself because he killed himself with a shotgun that he had asked me a few months prior to get it out of the barn and bring it home. And I just assumed he wanted me to bring it home for the winter. And I'd looked for it several times when we were out here. They were building a new house and I was helping with that. I'd look for that shotgun, 4 or 5 times and I never could find it. And I'd forgotten about it. Well, the day he did what he did, him and my mom came out here and they hadn't been here 2 minutes. And he walked into the barn and he was gone. So blame myself for quite a while. And then about 4 years afterwards, the Illinois Department of Corrections came up with what they called their staff wellness response team. And when I initially heard about that, I'd been around a while and I'd seen lots of programs come and go. And I thought, here we go again, another silly DOC program that's going to amount to nothing. Well, I had a couple of my coworkers tell me, "Hey, you ought to check that out. You might be good at it." Okay, fine. So I filled out the application, and Steph and a couple other people showed up. Steph was running the team at the time, and they did my interview. And apparently, I did good enough in the interview that they put me on the team. And the training I went to get on that team, it was through the International Critical Incident Stress Foundation. That was a 4-day training, and I had to miss the first day of it, but days 2 through 4, when they would break for lunch, everybody would take off except for me and the instructor. And finally, on the last day on lunch break, I got the gumption up to, ask the instructor. Well, I told him the short version of the story, and I was just looking for answers because I hadn't gone to any counseling or anything like that. And the conversation I had with him helped out tremendously, in addition to, the time I had with my wife, because she got it. She'd already been through this. She understood it. And she was just as devastated as I was, because the day she met my dad, I mean, they were instantly the best of friends. And I didn't know it until after he was gone. She worked for the school district, so she had her summers off. And there were multiple times, almost weekly, that my dad would be in town and he'd stop by the house just to chat with my wife for a little bit, just to see how things are going. I didn't know that until after he had died. So I finally got to the point where I just decided I've got two choices here. I can either let this incident define me, like Brent said, or I can try to find something positive to do with it. And that's what happened when I got on the DOC staff wellness team. The training I went through with that, the people that I got to work with on that team, that was the best bunch of people I'd ever been around in my 31 years. A couple of them are on here today, Steph and Bob Bowe, and I owe those two a lot. That was as beneficial as anything else that's happened since, is just being involved with that team and getting to know those people.
Thank you. Thank you, Howie. Wow. So many layers to our story. And you kind of connected to the next question I have about the power of connection, social support, and community. So you kind of talked about that through the staff wellness team. But what about Sean? What about you, Sean? What about the power of connection, social support, and community? What did you,
So
how did you
I
deal
think
with that?
the connection has really taken hold, especially over the last 10 years or so. After I met Denise and knew it was okay and safe at my organization to be open about it. I've quite often shared very openly with academy classes, in-service classes, roll calls, and obviously friends. And then now at this point through AJA with connections all across the country. When I took over the presidency in May, at my dad's, the anniversary of his passing, I was compelled to write a letter that went out to all the membership. So we sent a letter telling the story, to include the part where last year, sadly, I lost one of my staff members to suicide. And I offered, literally, I offered my personal cell phone number, that if anybody ever felt the need to talk, shoot me a text, give me a call. Maybe call me twice if I don't pick up the first time because it's a strange number, but I'll be there, right? So I sent that letter all the way to all the members of American Jail Association. Later on, a couple months ago, the New York City Department of Corrections, the commissioner and I have become, friendly. We have to do a lot of work with the New York City Department of Corrections, and they lost somebody to suicide, and I sent that same letter and made that same offer to her entire department. Obviously, they have more members in their organization than I have as American Jail Association. They have 7,000 employees. We have about 3,500 members. So I offer that same thing. So the connection's there. And has my phone run? No, nobody's called. Nobody sent me a text, except for, hey, thank you for being so bold as to share, your number, share your story, and that connection's there, knowing that, and that's maybe how we ended up here today, was one of those letters, right? So
Yep.
it's vitally important to be able to just to be a quiet ear that's listening, just to, that could save somebody. And it's you can't beat it, actually. I mean, the informal network, the professionals are fantastic, but sometimes just having a friend or somebody just willing to sit down and just hear you vent a little bit could save the day.
Right, absolutely, with no easy fixes and shallow comfort. But yes, especially people who've been there or struggled, I know what that means, what that feels like. What about you, Brent? You talked about some of the volunteers and counseling. Anything else you want to talk about regarding connection and the power of social support?
Yeah, I think for me, those volunteers, they were just in the right place at the right time, which tells me there's a power greater than myself moving things around. But there was also, I had a really strong family. Even though they were states away, they came to Colorado to be with me. They provided great support. Even Dee's family that didn't like me in the beginning, um, when it happened, they came around and realized that they were um, kind of wrongfully accusing me of things, and um, we have a good relationship now, and it's beneficial for my kids that they do have that ongoing relationship. So that was a really critical healing process that I went through with her sisters and brothers. So that was really important. I would also add too that I had great support from the Department of Corrections. I had some really good partners in there. They're still friends to this day. They surrounded me. Um, but I will caution that the support you get has to be kind of the right kind at the right time. And we all know in corrections, sometimes support just means let's go have a beer. That's not necessarily the kind of support that you need, uh, maybe at that moment. So the volunteers were the stronger support in the beginning, but then in the long run, the partners at work, they knew when the anniversary date was. They knew
Wow.
when to keep an eye on me, that I might not be doing my best. In fact, I'll tell you one short story. Ironically, I was one of the trainers for suicide prevention for our department. So when Dee died, I took myself off of that training program for several months, thinking I wasn't going to be able to do this training. And when I thought I was ready to go back, I was not. And a couple of people in the class that knew me well, they knew me as a trainer and they knew me as a corrections person. They noticed it and they helped me through the day.
Wow,
And
you
I
mean
will always be grateful for that.
you tried to deliver the training and you had trouble
I
delivering
had
it?
trouble and they knew I was having trouble and they sort of carried me along.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's teamwork. That's
Mhm.
beautiful.
So
Who's,
very, very important. Community, um,
yeah,
social support, friends,
yeah.
neighbors. Yeah.
Compassion. Awesome. What about you, Howie? You talked a little bit about it before, but anything else you want to add to this?
Yeah, I as far as the power connection, social support, and community side of it, the DOC staff wellness team for me was huge, because I got put in touch with people that were like-minded. I mean, the people that got on that team were on the team for the right reasons, and it was good to be able to talk to them and to hear their stories, because pretty much everybody had something similar, something traumatic. And it may not have been a suicide, but it was something that got their attention to where they decided they wanted to do something positive with it too. So that was big. And something else I did, and this was pre-staff wellness, and it was right after Robin Williams killed himself, which was a couple years or so after my dad died, I think. But I was at work and they were talking about it, and somebody made a comment that just infuriated me, talking about how people that kill themselves are just weak. And uh, I was mad, and I went home and I typed up a fairly long blurb and put it on Facebook and basically told my dad's story, because for his entire adult life he was solid as a rock, even though he'd been diagnosed back in the early 90s. And then when he quit taking his meds, that's when things just went crazy, and he was not the same person. Over about a 6-month period, he'd lost 30 pounds. He'd aged. It looked like he was 30 years older than what he was. But after I wrote that post, it seemed like people came out of the woodwork that had somebody else do the same thing that they had never ever talked about. Whether it was a coworker, whether it was a friend, and just being able to be in touch with those people and whether it was me or them, being able to come to the realization, hey, you know what? I'm not the only one that's gone through something like this. There are people out there that have been through it and understand what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking. And I'll fast forward to, when I retired September of 20. I'd been looking forward to that day for so long. And then when that day rolled around, it hit me. The hardest part about retiring out of DOC was leaving that team, because working with them for the last 3 years I was there, I made so many solid connections. Still got, people I consider lifelong friends. I don't get to talk to them all the time, but when I do, it's beneficial for me. And then, after I retired, I got involved with FOP. I got involved with Desert Waters, and it goes back to taking that god awful situation, whatever it is, and trying to find something positive to do with it. So anytime I get the chance to, do some Desert Waters work or FOP work, and I think Sean and Brent both mentioned it, or if it's fire department, just being there to give somebody the opportunity to vent where they know it's not going to go any further. It's hugely beneficial. So, and every bit of that stuff has been very therapeutic for me too. Even when I'm just the one that's doing the listening, it's every bit of it is good. So.
Very good. Thank you. Sean, do you want to add anything to this?
I was just thinking about the family, that what happens is when you every time you engage with somebody on a topic, you ended up with an extra friend, most likely, at the very least another connection. So it's amazing how many people are touched by these kind of events, right? And it's impressive, and the fact that I just want to, before I forget, I want to make sure I thank you again for inviting me to be here, because
Oh my
I mean,
goodness.
I feel like I've known you forever all of a sudden. But it's
Mhm.
your work is amazing, and that helps too. Any way you can connect the communities is always amazing. A text message, a random email, a Facebook post that could trigger great conversation. There's so many ways to connect. It's vital.
Yes.
Yeah.
Vital, and vital means we need it for life. I mean, it gives you life. It gives you living juice to keep going. One thing I want to add here, because it has been said so many times that people who kill themselves by suicide are selfish, and people don't understand that it has nothing to do with being selfish or unselfish. It's just somebody in such acute pain, they want the pain to stop. And they're not thinking whether they're going to hurt you or not, or they think they're going to spare you more misery. Actually, at times, they think that if I'm gone, your life will be easier. And so it's not at all selfish. It is just like if you had a blinding toothache and you want that toothache to stop, like, please pull that tooth, do whatever, do something. I can't stand it. So, yeah, it really hurts whenever I hear people say something like, they are so selfish. Whew, it
Yeah.
shows me they have no idea. They have not a clue. Okay, so anything you learned about yourselves, guys, and your journey of healing, and maybe we can start with Brent again. What did you learn about yourself and the journey of healing, with the layers of it?
Well, I learned it's not a single event, that this is a process that's going to take maybe the rest of
Yeah.
a person's life. And it's not just one thing. It keeps going on and on and on. And you might think that you're doing better, and you probably are doing better, but it only takes one little date or one little thing, something in the house. It could be something as silly as a TV show that just reminds you of what happened, and now you're going back there in your mind, and it's hard to pull yourself out. It gets a little easier over time, but it's not ever completely gone, I don't think. At
Right.
least not for me.
The half stitched scar we read about earlier gets torn open again. Yes, and
The
it's
other
not.
thing I have to say
Go
too
ahead.
is my kids are grown now and they're doing really well. And since they've grown up, we've had a lot of conversations about their mom and what a great person she really was. And I really don't want them to think of her in the terms of how she died. I want them to think of her in the terms of how she lived. So we've that's been part of the healing for us as a group, and I think it's really important now that they're older. But talk about a trigger. My daughter looks just like my wife. Every day I look at her. So
Yeah, 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 yeah. And big reminder, walking
yeah.
around. Yes.
Mhm.
Whoa, yes. And yes, the healing is not linear. It's not straight line. It's circles all over the place. Howie, anything you would like to add about what you learned about yourself and the journey of healing?
I think the biggest thing I learned about myself is that a lot of the preconceived notions and thoughts I had about mental illness weren't even close to being accurate. I was, I'll just say, I was a skeptic for years until I watched this completely destroy my dad. And, over the course of 6 months or so, from the time he really went downhill until he died, um, the thought never ever crossed my mind that the final outcome would be suicide. And I don't know why. It makes no sense looking back on it because all the signs were there. But lessons learned. I was wrong, and my wife was a heck of a lot more right than what I thought she was.
Wow.
And I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. And we know that manic depression is one of those biggest risks for suicide. I mean, illnesses. Yeah. Yeah. Sean, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, sure. To Howie's point, when I was 18 and this event happened, I started a corrections academy about 6 months, 10 months later, and it was funny, and it's not funny at all, actually. In the academy, they were teaching same things I was experiencing. Listening to my dad after my mom left, which was the trigger for his demise. He was threatening to kill my future stepdad, and then kill himself. And they were teaching the academy that usually if people are talking about it, they're not going to do it. They're probably not going to do it. So, but he was talking about it every day. But that was my preconceived notion. It was way off. That if somebody's talking about it, they're probably asking for help, right? I didn't know. I was 18 years old and didn't know any better. And obviously, the Corrections Academy needed to improve, and thankfully, it did really quick because that wasn't the truth. Because I learned more about mental illness working in a jail, right? Learning about those things, seeing it every day. But it's it's amazing that they could be so wrong. And I was thankful that day that my future stepdad got to be my stepdad, and only one life was lost that day because I was afraid that there was a murder suicide. Thank God it wasn't the case. And to Brent's point, it is lifelong. The
Mm,
journey in
Mhm.
in recovery is lifelong. You make good friends doing it, and there are triggers. And every time you talk about it, there's a trigger. And I'll tell you what, Katerina, last week when we were prepping for this call, it put me in a spot. The last few days, I've been kind of trying. What's wrong with me? What's wrong? Wait a minute. I know what's going on. We opened up that can of worms again, and we're thinking about it. And
Yeah.
I'm hoping to close that can of worms right after this for a little while and make sure we're happy through the holidays. But it's definitely something that comes up all the time, even on a TV show. If a TV show happens and there's a suicide, you think about it, and then you're going to linger on a little bit and get back to the show. But yeah, it's amazing how far, especially in this profession, how far we've come in 30 years. Because from absolutely dismissing it as a non-thing to a real problem that not just the people you're watching, but the guy's going to come to respond with you or have use of force with you or just be in roll call with you. They're going to have the same problems. So we got to be human. We got to make sure we take care of all the humans.
yes, 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 yes. And making sure we make time for processing, like writing down, like journaling, talking to somebody. Some people write poetry, whatever, to to feel, it's like emptying the tube of toothpaste. One more tube of toothpaste, squeezing it empty. And maybe there'll be more tubes of toothpaste sitting on the shelf, but at least squeeze that one out, process, cry a little bit, and talk to somebody, get a hug. And maybe if one needs to forgive, one more round of forgiveness, one more round of letting go, one more round of acceptance, one more coat of whatever it takes, and holding on to the living and looking to the future. But yeah, allowing it time, not shoving it down and sealing it really quickly, but saying, well, you popped up, you need my attention. I'll give you some attention now. And then it will kind of evaporate and go away until the next round. Like I said, the TV show, somebody saying something. So thank you. Thanks for being vulnerable and willing to feel that pain in order to help other people. That's why we're doing this. We're not masochistic here, like enjoying picking scabs. We are doing this to help and encourage. And I've never lost a relative to suicide, but I lost two clients that I had stopped working with. One was 2 years late after we had finished our work, and I had moved on, and he had moved on, and another one was months later. And I still grieve them at times when they come to mind, because to me they were preventable deaths. I was told by other people, and I was shocked, like, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. So what helped and what didn't help you during the grieving process? So let's see who is ready to go with that one. What helped and what didn't help with the grieving process?
I suppose I can go first. For me, at least initially, early on, keeping myself busy, keeping my mind occupied helped a lot. Some of the things that didn't help, and I'll go back to when it happened. I took some time off, to help my mom to try to figure out what we're going to do next. And when I got back to work, the people that normally came up and talked to me, prior to roll call or whatever, sit around, chit chat or whatever, they kept their distance. And that really bothered me. And I didn't realize it at the time. And it took me a while to figure it out. They just didn't know what to say. And so that was painful at the time. But now that I understand it, I don't hold any grudges or anything. But I still think the biggest things that helped me personally, number one was reconnecting with my faith, and number two was my wife, because she'd been through it. She understood it. She wasn't scared to tell me if she thought I was struggling or whatever. And similar to what Sean said, after last week, we had our pre-meeting, and then I got a chance to chat with Katerina one-on-one for a little bit, and she got me thinking about some things that I hadn't thought about before or had forgotten about. And when I got done with that chat with Katerina, I sat down and had a conversation with my wife, and one of the first things I asked her was, do you think I'm doing okay? And I know she's going to be honest with me, and she's just been rock solid. I can't say enough good things about her. So that's what helped me.
Great. What about you, Brent?
I could say the same thing that Howie just said. My new wife, my new wife of 27 years now, has been such a rock, just so supportive. And we had just started seeing each other. We met at work when Dee died. So we kind of had this start of a relationship at that moment, but she was very supportive and has been ever since, with not just me, but the kids. And so you can't put a value on that. Obviously, my faith has been strengthened. My prayers changed a lot after the suicide, and I think that has been a good thing. The other thing that probably helped as much as anything was coming to work for you, Katerina, coming to train your classes. And I'm not just saying this because you're here and because these people are potential customers or whatever. The training that we do in Desert Waters is therapeutic by nature. And when we get to teach it, I mean, I say get to teach it,
Yeah.
we get a, a piece of therapy every time we do it. And
Wow.
there's a slide in the program on suicide. And to be honest with you, when that slide would come up in the beginning, I didn't want to talk about that slide. But now enough time has passed, and I look forward to that slide because it's an
Wow.
opportunity to help people in the class who may have gone through what we've gone through, what we're talking about, and maybe even prevent somebody from doing it. So
Yes.
it's such a powerful thing. But in the early going, I wouldn't have been able to do that, at least not as well. The other thing I think that hurt my recovery was delaying my own grief. I went right to work taking care of my kids, and
Mhm.
there's stuff that has to be done. So I think delaying it probably made it harder when I had to go back and revisit it with counselors. And I had so many mixed emotions, things I hadn't actually processed at all, that I had to dig up and relive, basically, so that I could get better. And that was harder down the road than it would have been maybe in the beginning. But I just went right into take care of business mode, which we're all used to doing in corrections. And I think in the long run, it probably hurt not to take the time in the
Yeah.
beginning.
And the only way I can respond to that is like you did the best you could with where you were at to keep it together. So you could keep it together as a dad. You couldn't take a week off and go to a retreat. I mean, you had to keep it together. So you did the best you could. That's where we have to cut slack to ourselves and say, "Yeah, you really did the best you could at it with what the resources you had available to you at the time." And you're right. I mean, look at the culture you were in. I mean, the corrections culture, suck it up, buttercup, right?
That's right.
And also the men part, the male part that says the same. Just keep it together, and don't be a sissy and be whimpering, and go be a man. And is it cowboy up? Is that the expression? So,
Yeah.
so you did the best you could with what you had. And it's wonderful that you went back later, and like Sean did later, and opened up. It's like an autopsy, if I'm not too graphic, opening up that whole scene again and looking and revisiting and helping heal. Sean, do you want to add anything to the what helped and what didn't help during the grieving
Yeah.
process?
So in hindsight, obviously, what didn't help, obviously, was ignoring it, and just not dealing with it at all, and pretending I knew better definitely didn't help at all. So what did help over the years, obviously, was prayer. And as I said earlier, my amazing wife calling me out, and just being a good partner. She's amazing, and I love her wholeheartedly. I say that specifically because she's listening. And then obviously getting the professional help, finding the perfect counselor for me. Denise was amazing, still is amazing. I did try a couple before I met Denise, and they weren't for me, because I needed somebody who was going to call me out on my silliness. To not say bad words. And Denise was there for that, and she does a good job. She still does. She still calls me out when I'm being silly. So, and then realizing, I have a degree in philosophy, right? And you talk about the Stoics a little bit, and their biggest thing is you can control what you can control, right? And the only thing you can control in life is your response to things and your emotions. That's it. Everything else is out of your control. You need to work on trying to understand the why, but knowing that, or getting to the point where I can only control me, and how I respond to things was vital to me. So definitely, not ignoring it was probably I waited way too long. Let's put it that way. But you know what? That's
Yeah.
all in God's time. this entire path has been in God's time, no matter what. So
Yeah. Looking back, that's where we extend grace to each other and to ourselves and say, again, I did the best I could with what I had to go with, to work with at the time. Yeah, maybe if one had tried earlier, they would have fallen completely apart. Maybe it wasn't time. You had to ripen on the tree, so to speak, and be ready. But yes, ignoring it forever becomes gangrenous. It's not good. So what about, the loved one towards who dies by suicide, and there is that ambivalence, like you grieve their loss, but you're mad at them for what they did, also angry at them. How do you honor and remember them? Would like
I'll
to.
jump right back in. What's funny is I don't recall being mad at him. And I mean, I remember saying to myself, listen, you lost your wife. My dad, I mean, that's what happened. That was triggered it. My mom left him. And so I was thinking I was bewildered by it. I wasn't mad, but I was like kind of shocked. Like, were your kids not good enough for you to stick around? I mean, the event, I didn't describe it earlier, but the event was just pure vengeance on his part. Because he actually called my mother and shot himself while she was on the phone with him. So he wanted to harm her, and he did drastically. Um, but that's my only emotion towards that was, why did you not choose me and my sister over, that? I don't remember being mad. I've forgiven him a long time ago. I hope to get some explanations later on at some point. Not in a rush to get those explanations. Definitely want to live a full life here. But I remember it was funny. I was never angry, and honestly, I wasn't really sad either. I don't know, in the middle, I guess. In Espanol, más o menos. I was a little in the middle, and it was a bizarre feeling. But there was definitely emotions. Obviously, there was plenty of emotions to
Yes.
unpack there, but it was not as as angry as I should have been or could have been, I guess.
Right. So it was more her feeling of hurt. Why weren't we good enough for you to stick around for your two children? That sense of abandonment. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, man. And I'm sure there was such a sense of being numb and disconnected from everything, dissociated for quite a while. Thank you. Howie, anything you want to share on that one? How you honor and remember your dad?
Yeah, I've got a couple or three wrote down. The first one was joining the DOC staff wellness team, trying to take that horrible event and using it as a positive to, either help people through it that are going through it at the time, or to help them try to prevent it. And then since I've retired, working with the FOP team and working with Desert Waters, I wouldn't be doing this if that event didn't happen back in 2013. So,
Wow. Yes. And you speak about your dad with a lot of affection and love, which is great.
yeah, and I want to piggyback off of something Sean said. I was never angry with him. I was angry with myself, and with him. Once I got the chance to think about it and remembering how he was when he was taking care of himself versus how he was before he died, it was on one of your slides early on about that sense of relief, and it wasn't relief that he was gone. It was relief that he's not going to have to live the way he lived the last few months of his life. If it would have been, and I don't want this to come across the wrong way, but if he would have had to live like that for another, 2 years or 5 years or 10 years, it's to me, it was almost like somebody that had Alzheimer's that just slowly deteriorates. And I don't know if, obviously it was extremely painful to lose him, but sometimes I ask myself, would it have been more painful to keep him around and have him never recover?
Unmedicated, like if he refused to take his medications. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. And that's the tough one. Like in your shoes, if he had taken his meds, he could have come back eventually, tweaking them again and again, getting them right. He could have kind of come back to life, so to speak, but he didn't want to go there. So
Yeah.
he was deteriorating by the day. Yes. Yes. Thank you. Brent?
So I don't think I was angry in the beginning. I was upset, obviously, very, very sad. And telling your kids that their mom's gone that's the hardest day of my life. That will always be the hardest day
Wow.
of my life.
Wow.
And that's where my anger eventually landed. Some months later, I'm sure. I was angry at her because she robbed our kids of knowing their mom. And
Mm.
that pisses me off still to this day. So I'm not going to lie about that. They didn't get to know their mom. They were little, 3 and 5, and that's just not very old. And so they have asked a lot of questions about their mom, and we've had a lot of great discussions now that they're older, especially as adults. And it's brought us closer. But it would have been nice for her to have been here to see them grow up and them to know her and know the good parts of her. And there were so many. And they were robbed of that. And that angers me still. So I'd be
It
lying if I
hurts.
didn't say I was mad about that.
Yeah.
But I think I was so overwhelmed with just sadness in the beginning. I didn't feel the anger. I think that came months later, maybe a year later or more, when I
Yeah.
realized, big picture, long life, these kids, this is now what they have to deal with.
Good
That,
questions.
yeah,
Empty, like the void, nothing to fill the
yeah,
void with the mother. How many years was it between her death and your getting remarried?
couple of years.
Okay. So they
Mhm.
were completely without that female presence in their lives,
Yeah,
that
well,
mother.
Lisa was still around. We just weren't married yet, and then, you know, it was hard. And
Oh, I'm
my
sure.
daughter was only 3, so she lost out on memories of her mom. She just didn't have any memories. And my son was 5, so he had some memories. But kids don't know how to deal with grief, and they don't understand what happened, and they certainly don't understand suicide. And in the beginning, that wasn't even the discussion. The discussion was that mommy just passed away. We didn't get to suicide for several years. Um,
Wow.
and
So it was,
unfortunately, that conversation happened because a kid at my son's school told him that
wow.
that's what happened to your mom. So then we had to have the discussion. So
Whoa.
yeah,
Oh my goodness. And that talk about ripping that scar open again. Oh my goodness. In so many different ways.
so those are some of the ripple effects that caused me to be, I guess you'd say, a little bit angrier, but still, it's more sadness than anger. It's
Hmm.
like, she didn't get to see her kids grow up. They didn't get to know her.
And she was obviously suffering enough to want to end it,
Yeah.
to end her life. She was in a pretty miserable place.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. So you speak to about her very honorably to your children, and that's the biggest thing you could be doing for her right now. I mean, in her
Yeah. The
honor.
other thing we do too to celebrate her, we only have good conversations about her. It's just that's where we go. But in the beginning, when the day that she died rolled around, that was kind of a day that it was stuck in my head, the death day or whatever you want to call it. And a few years ago, we quit talking about the day she died and we celebrate her birthday.
All right.
We
All right.
switched gears completely. We know when her birthday is. That's a better day to think about mom and talk about mom, and that's how it is.
Excellent. 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 So our last bullet here, strategies for coping. You're taking care of yourself, finding meaning and healing after that loss. So, Sean, are you ready to go with that one?
Sure. I just want to, Brent just reminded me of something. I'm forced to remember my father's birthday because we share the same birthday.
Oh,
So it was, and over the years, and I think my wife would agree, over the years, probably the last 5, 6 years, more of the memories that are coming up that I'm talking about are not the bad ones. There was a lot of bad stuff in my childhood, but I'm tending to lean towards remembering the good stuff. and talking about the good stuff, and that's happening a lot more. Our most recent trip to Boston, I got to do the same kind of drive around the neighborhood, show her around, and those were mostly good stories. So it was good. I think the strategies moving forward are the same things we've been talking about, is maintaining, good positive relationships with people that are of like mind, that maybe have experienced things that you have, and your style organization, Desert Waters, is amazing. And reading about things and new techniques, and just being there for people, and like I said earlier, just being that open ear, willing to just listen to people, recognize, especially if you're in any kind of leadership positions, you got to know your people, right? And you got to know your people well enough to notice when there's subtle issues, subtle changes in their demeanor and how they're acting. The deputy I lost last year, we tried to diagnose it. We tried to figure out, what did we miss at work. She was work night shifts. Her supervision didn't notice any kind of changes, all the way down to her family. I got to speak to her husband multiple times. He didn't recognize any changes, and I think he was being genuine about that. So there may be times you're never gonna know, but we do our best to make sure we know our people well enough to identify those changes, and just be open enough to say, something up. Hey, is there anything I can help you with? Or everything okay at home? You want to be there for that. Being present, that's the key. The part of the I was, before we came live here, I talked about me sitting in this chair usually around 4:15, 4:30, lately about 4:45. I must be getting old. But I do that on purpose, so I can see my night shift, leaving at night, and seeing the day shift come in. I get to, at the very least, I see them in the lobby after roll call, and as we're leaving, some fist bumps just to make sure people are looking okay and happy. And you can tell. I mean, I don't know my deputies as well as their sergeant should or could, but I can tell the difference when somebody's tired. And then I ask Sarge, hey, everything okay with Deputy so and so? And yeah, and they always, the best part is they always have an answer. Yeah, they've been a little under the weather. Their kids have been sick, so they're tired, but they still came to work, so we're thankful. Those kind of things. Just being present and making sure you're there for your people. Like I said, I've offered my cell phone number out nationally. I'll put it in the chat right now, as a matter of fact. And I'll be there if you want to give me a call. And during our chat here, I was reminded by my wife that I did receive a phone call recently. Not somebody wasn't personally feeling suicidal, but he was on his way home to go deal with a child who was threatening it, and he just wanted a calm ear to listen to as he was driving. So I went outside,
Wow.
sat on the pool deck, and just listened. And we talked about God, we talked about prayer. And when he pulled in his driveway, all right, mate, appreciate it. Got off the phone and handled his business, and everything turned out perfect. So it's like I said, my wife's a great partner. She's reminded me via text message that I did get that phone call. So it's good.
Great. She keeps track of things. She keeps track of things very well. Thank you. Howie and Brent?
Pretty much the same thing that Sean talked about. My wife and I, we're both, well, she's retired, I'm semi-retired, so we got a lot of opportunity to talk about everything, and this comes up fairly frequently. And every time we get to have the conversation, I think it moves both of us a little bit further forward. And she's an aspiring, I'll just say, amateur photographer, and we've got a 5-year-old grandson, and we've got him a lot because the kids are working, and he's quite the little 5-year-old, and she'll take a lot of pictures of him doing, stuff around the farm, taking care of chickens, cows, whatever. And she'll post those on her Facebook page. And one of my aunts, the sister of my dad, every now and then she'll see one of those pictures and she'll comment, "Oh, your dad and your grandpa would be so proud of the little guy," which is great. More publicly, again, just as far as self-care and finding meaning, just getting out and talking to people, whether it's, through my FOP team or the Desert Waters team. There's always going to be people out there that need help. And if whether it's me or somebody else on the team, can take advantage of that opportunity to help somebody. You might never ever know the impact of that conversation you have with them, but I guarantee you it's there.
Absolutely, I agree with you. And they may tell you years later, remember when you said that, it changed my
Yep.
life? And you say, did I say that? I don't remember ever saying that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Brent, you want to share something here?
Much the same as Sean and Howie have said. One thing I did kind of come to realize at some point years ago is, we always ask the question, why? Why did they do this? There's so many other things they could have done. Why they do this? Why they do that? It really helped me heal and my self-care grow when I just came to realize I can't know, I won't know, and I don't have to know why. I just can go on with my life, and the why is theirs to own, not mine. And I think that really helped me understand my part doesn't have to be that. It's to live and go on with life. And like the guy said, if we can help anybody, just remotely along the way, one
Yeah.
person, I mean, you can't put a value on it. It's just the best. And that's why
Yes.
I think we all love what we do with Desert Waters. And even though we've been through hard times, would never want to wish that on anybody. If through that we can help somebody else, then that's what we want to do.
Yeah. So life is all about loving, sharing love back and forth. So the Beatles were right. All you need is love, right? Remember that? The Beatles song? All you need is love. Yeah. So, wow. So thank you. Any last minute comments you want to make, all three of you, before we go into a couple of slides and Q&A?
I would just say thanks for putting this webinar together, Katerina, because this is the hardest topic to talk about. Nobody wants to
Yeah.
talk about it. And to the people that joined this webinar, I would say thank you for showing up, and hopefully you've gotten something out of it too, because this is not an easy topic. This is
No.
maybe the hardest topic.
No, I really struggled about having it, but it was not leaving me. It was glued on my brain, and like, we need to do this because everybody else is celebrating all kinds of festivities, and people are at the back of having that void of a preventable death. That's why it makes the death different from other kinds of death. So thank you for being willing to make it happen. Howie and Sean, anything you'd like to share before we go into another mode?
Well, similar to what Brent said, there's help out there if you need it. Please don't hesitate to take advantage of it. Forget about the stigma, because that's just not important. And there's always hope too. Don't ever give up.
Right. I remember a guy who survived a really nasty overdose, intentional suicidal act, and unbeknownst to him, and his wife at the time was pregnant, and they had tried to have a child like for 15 years. And he said, if I had died, I would have never met my daughter. And he was so glad they saved him at the hospital, pumping all kinds of charcoal down his throat. He was so thankful he survived. Whew. So anything you'd like to add, Sean?
Yeah, thank you. Katerina, it shows tremendous leadership. When if something is put on your heart and you can't forget about it, you got to put it together and you got to just hit it out of the park. And I think you did. So
Well,
thank you
thank
very
you.
much for inviting me.
Thank you. Again, you made it happen. It wouldn't have happened without you guys, because I can give a theoretical, distant training, but it's different having the people who live it out loud with us. So you made it happen. So thank you. So please, if you can hang on for a few more minutes, we're going to cover a little more ground. If you can, Justin, we can talk about some resolution steps. You have mentioned some of them, Brent, already, and the rest of you also, about acceptance, resolution. And these are not all covering everything. They're not exhaustive as a list. It's about not, I have to accept that you don't know why, and you'll never be fully able to understand it. And also that you may have loved somebody perfectly, the best love ever, but that may not have stopped them from killing themselves. And the healing journey is not linear. It's all over the place. It's like fireworks and popcorn all over the place. And you can continue loving that person, but really not liking what they did, like killing themselves. You may like love the person, but hate the act of suicide, maybe. And honoring them without endorsing their act, accepting that I can honor them, but I'm not endorsing suicide. And you may need to go through rounds of forgiveness if it feels like they left you intentionally or tried to hurt you or whatever through the suicidal act. Acceptance is foundational for healing, to resolve and move on and have a life. And I just collected a few resources. There are tons more out there. If you can, there are some support groups. A lot of them are online now, thank goodness. The American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, AFSP, has materials you can access. Samaritans, they have a hotline too. They have online meetings. The Alliance for Hope for Suicide Loss Survivors, and then the local outreach to suicide survivors. All these have online as well as in-person meetings from what I understand, which is wonderful because it looks like one of the best ways to heal and keep healing is through interacting with people who have been through it. And Howie has it built in his house with his wife. I mean, they both they're mini support group for each other. And let's go, then we have a couple of other national listings of resources page all over the country. The American Foundation for Suicide Prevention and the American Association of Suicidology. They have so many resources on their sites. It's unbelievable. You can spend days and days reading on stuff. And then we have some books, and I have not read them all. I've read the first one, studied it really. It's very rich and very challenging in some ways. Makes you think, but it's beautifully written. Night Falls Fast, Understanding Suicide. She made two very, very, very serious suicide attempts while off her meds. And then there are other books like No Time to Say Goodbye, After Suicide Loss, etc. And so I'm not saying you have to go read them or they're all excellent, but they are on the subject about losing someone to suicide. And the first book, Night Falls Fast, is understanding. It has a lot of topics, understanding suicide from different perspectives. It's really worth digging into, but it's intense. And she's a survivor herself of attempted suicide, manic depressive. So, and Justin has a little announcement about our next, going back to correctional systems for January. The January webinar. He put that in Slack. Any other questions or comments? Well, I'm delighted so many people showed up just before Christmas time. And being such a heavy topic that a lot of people would rather avoid. And I see other people from our team here, like, hi, Joe. Thanks for showing up. Really,
I have a question, Katerina.
yes.
And maybe Joe can shed some light. It's been a while, but I remember reading statistics that if a person has a family member who commits suicide, the statistical possibilities of them choosing that same demise goes up.
Right. The
Is that
risk.
really where the research takes you? Is that?
Yeah, I remember the shared genetics, maybe the shared environment. There's a higher risk, and also the seed has been planted. There's something called suicide contagion, and I'm sure Joe can say a lot about it, where it becomes like an acceptable option as opposed to a not acceptable option.
And I think since I heard that, this was a long time ago, that's why my concern for my kids has always been so great,
Yes,
because
yes,
they would think that was a viable option.
right, and in fact, yes, that is a risk. Joe, do you want to share anything about that?
You hit the nail right on the head. Katerina, I think. I mean, it's a complicated phenomenon, and suicide is very difficult to predict, very difficult. So whether it's shared genetic material that is a predisposition towards depression or bipolar disorder, unfortunately, is probably the mental illness with the highest genetic loading, and also the highest suicide risk. And so I'm sure that accounts for some of it. But Brent, I think you're spot on too. I think for suicide to be an option, it has to be an option. And you know, an event like that that hits your family, unfortunately, makes it an option. But in my head and heart, the way you deal with it, you don't hide it. You talk about it. You're open about it. You celebrate rather than avoid. And that's the best we can do for anybody, is to watch out for people, watch out for each other, and to do it respectfully and lovingly without judgment as best we can. So I think, you know, that's definitely the way to go. And I'll also say, you know, that's what puts corrections people at higher risk too. That sort of for suicide to be an option, it has to be an option. We talk about suicide a lot. Unfortunately, and I'm not saying we shouldn't do this, but most of that is pointed at the inmate population, and rightly so. I'm glad that we now seem to be turning more towards staff wellness and staff suicide prevention than I've ever seen in the field. So that's the good news.
Thanks.
Yes. 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 Complex topics. Yes. My goodness. And one thing I like about the Night Falls Fast book is that this woman really makes an effort to talk about getting past. She says, getting past suicide. She says, I know I have a disease that is trying to kill me. So I've surrounded myself with everything I can to keep it from killing me. Like that's why she's a worldwide expert on medications compliance, to take her meds herself, if it starts there, and having the therapy, having the openness, writing those books, whatever, to keep it from tricking her into killing herself, because she came very close a couple of times. She shouldn't be here by all accounts. So it's a book celebrating life, not just understanding suicide. Yeah, and reaching out to people when they're desperate and letting them know there is a life after, even after job loss. I mean, I know people who did the wrong thing, corrections people, end up in prison, and I was concerned they would kill themselves, but amazingly, a lot of them didn't. They got through it and became probably better human beings as a result of going through it, facing things. But it's a tough one, reaching somebody when they're so desperate. And especially, I saw one thing I saw in chat, I glanced about no signs. And that's the thing that drives people bananas, about no signs. And I'm thinking there are times when people have a secret life, they have a hidden life, they have addictions you know nothing about. They have cross lines you have no idea about, and they know they're about to be found out, and they don't want the humiliation. So they'll put an end to it. And Joe is nodding because he probably has heard and seen things like that. And you think, oh, I had no idea that this person had this secret life. Or so
Can I
was,
just,
yes.
I gotta say too, in corrections, we're literally trained to hide our emotions at work. We're literally trained to do that so that the inmates can't take advantage of us. We got to be this stoic person with hardly any emotions. So we get very good at hiding our emotions. So then when somebody does something like this, everybody says, well, there were no signs. Well, probably not going to see any signs at work, especially. It's just the
Wow.
way we're trained to behave at work. I mean, it's tragic, but it's part of our lifestyle at work.
Yes, yes, yes.
Well, I
Yes, and I
think the
want
other side of that, Brent, sorry, Katerina,
to, no,
just
go
two
ahead.
seconds. We're also trained how to interview usually the inmate population, and we know what to listen for to where suicide is a concern. So that means we're trained how to hide that
How not to
specific
say.
thing. We know exactly how to not let people know those thoughts.
That's right.
Well
Right.
said, Brent. Yeah.
Right, right. Like this typical, oh, I would never kill myself. My religion doesn't permit it, or whatever. Something like that I've heard before. Like, no, I'm not suicidal. No, absolutely not. And they're lying through their teeth because they know if they said yes, they're going to be hospitalized involuntarily. So they act like, nah, I was just joking about such and such. Or I wanted to get them all mad and whatever. So they know how to fake it. Yes. Sadly, yeah, because ultimately, one thing I want to say, maybe as part of the wrap up, is that if somebody's really, really determined to kill themselves, absolutely 1000% determined, they cannot be stopped by, I don't know about supernatural, but humans, I don't think you can stop them because they will do everything they can to cover up and hide and stage and do whatever to get it completed. And I've heard of those situations, and yeah, that we are not all powerful. We have to let go. We could not stop a lot of things, but we can be there to listen when somebody's giving you a signal. And I'll give you one last story here. ICO told a story where he was it was his last shift before he went on vacation, and he had to go home and pack because he was going to go on a red-eye flight to Mexico or wherever for whatever vacation. And his friend says, "Hey, can I talk to you for a minute?" He says, "Come, sorry, man. When I come back from vacation, I'll, I'll talk to you because I really need to go pack and run." And he comes back after his vacation and says, "Where is so and so? I haven't seen him." And they said, "You haven't heard?" Like, no, he killed himself that night. And the guy said, "I don't care what goes on now. From now on, I stop. If people want to talk to me, I drop everything and I listen to them." He was so messed up in his head about, talk about guilt. Like I wasn't there for my buddy because I was too busy running for that, to get that, get ready for that trip. And actually, I remember the president of a union talked about one of the people on his board calling him and saying, "I'm really, really hurting, not hurting. I need to talk." And he says, "Hey, let's talk about it some tomorrow or some other day. It's late now." And the guy killed himself that night. And it's like, he was so also traumatized. Like, I missed it. I missed it. So we need to make time for each other, guys. Which means energy and takes energy out of us. It's not cheap, it's not free, but it's life. So
So
count the cost. Go ahead, Steph.
I was gonna say, as we close out today, I wanted to share with you some very timely and exciting news for New York State public safety. One of our colleagues just notified us here at Desert Waters that the Lieutenant Joseph Banish Mental Health Act has been signed into law during this webinar in New York State that will swing wide the gates of peer support access for public safety officers in New York State. And so I just wanted to share with those of you who are left that we were just notified, and it just seemed too timely to
Right.
to not share that good news as we close out today. Um,
And Joseph Banish, the Lieutenant Joseph Banish died by suicide. He killed himself
yes,
due to organizational stressors that became overwhelming for him.
uh,
So it was a suicide that prompted this bill.
what a
But he's
legacy to his memory.
right.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go ahead and close our session out. Want to very much express additional thanks to all of you and our panelists, especially today, who took the time to and shared very deeply personal stories. And we appreciate all of you for attending. Don't miss our session next month, and we'll be posting those links and emailing you. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you do that on our website. And Thank you guys again for all you're doing. We wish you the greatest of holiday seasons in the next few weeks. Hope you enjoy some time with family and loved ones. And as always, if you guys think of additional questions before before our next webinar, or that you didn't think of while we were in session, please don't hesitate to email us at admin@desertwaters.com and we will respond to those. Thank you
Thank you.
guys.